Okay, hello there. So today I'm going to kind of go into the uh, meeting of the First World Parliament uh, in the book The Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross. This book is dated 1935, published by the Fraternitas Rosy Cross, or the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. Grandmaster was a Dr. Clymer until 1966, I believe, until his death. I did have a video kind of going through this introduction, but I think it was just kind of too long, and I might do that video again, kind of break it into smaller chunks. But I'll do that at a different time, I think, which I think there's a lot of good stuff in here, really. A lot of good information about their philosophy. It's just kind of hard to read. You know, it's like it's a 1935. It's just written really. It's just different, and reading his writing out loud is sometimes annoying. He just has this. It doesn't flow very well, and sometimes he'll leave words out, or maybe that's just on purpose. I don't know. Anyways, it's a pretty long introduction, really. And after that, it goes into a story of the meeting of the First World Parliament of all these different orders around the world, all these different mystery schools coming together in this cave. It's a story written by George Lippard, and he was a member of this fraternity. So I'm sure this story is fiction mixed with a little bit of truth as well. So I don't know what parts of it are fiction and what aren't. But probably the story underneath it is probably true, of them meeting and creating one, system or fraternity or brotherhood. So the meeting of the Council of Seven of the Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross, the First World Parliament. I might break this up. Let's see how long this is. Trying to be very careful with these pages, since it is an old book. I think that's where it ends, right there. I'm not sure. Because it also goes into the myth or the legend of George Washington, the Deliverer, which I think is pretty interesting too. He goes into the woods of this and finds like these monks. Kind of interesting. Let's see, where does this end technically? Pretty long. Maybe it's the whole thing, the rest of the book. Here it is. Okay. So yeah, it's pretty long. I'm gonna probably break this up. Let's see. Yeah. 30 pages, 34 pages. So I'll definitely break it up so I don't have to upload for 3 hours. There was a night when a band of earnest men who believed that God might be adored and man be loved without the medium of church or creed assembled in the solitudes of a mountain cavern. They were but few in number, and yet it seemed as if all the nations of the earth had sent their representatives to the secret Congress of Brotherhood, this obscure Parliament of Love. So here they're saying the secret Congress of Brotherhood. So they're sending all the delegates from all the different mystery schools across the world to this one cave. History, or that fabric of falsehood which is promulgated to the world as history, does not record the name of these men who formed the little band, and yet their deliberations went forth from that mountain cavern all over the world, like the voice of a regenerating angel. The fair-haired German was there, and by his side the Spaniard, with his bronzed cheek and eye of fire. There the Italian, full of the ancient glory of his land, and the Frenchman, with his story of Protestant and Catholic wars. The Swede, the Dane, the Hungarian, and the Turk, all were mingled in that band. Even the far land of the New World was represented there in the person of a colonist, fresh from the witchcraft murders of New England. These men, grouping round a rock which started from the cavern floor, talked with each other in low, earnest tones. A single torch inserted in the crevice of the rock gave its faint light to the scene and dimly revealed their various costumes and the passions as various, which flitted over each face. Near that rock, a solitary figure towered erect, his face and form concealed by a dark robe. While all the others conversed in agitated whispers, he alone was silent. Not a gesture betrayed his emotion, nor indicated that he was in truth anything but a dumb image of wood or stone. There was but one in that little band who knew his name. Wherefore this assemblage in the mountain cavern of Germany at dead of night by the faint ray of a solitary torch? Wherefore these signs by which the various persons recognized each other? And what meant that password in the ancient Hebrew tongue which echoes round the place until the gloomy arches seemed agitated into voice by the sound? It will be remembered that this meeting took place when the first quarter of the 17th century was near its close. The German with his fair hair and blue eyes arose. End quote. Reformations are in vain for my fatherland. A new Luther must arise and work at a broader and bolder reformation. The last has but subsisted one creed for another. Germany festers with the unburied corpses of those who have been slain in the war of creeds. The Reformation only agitated the atmosphere in which kings and priests swelter into bloated power. It left the poor where it found them, there under the hoofs of priest and king, doomed to dig and die, whether a pope or a synod reigns. Earth calls to God for a new reformation, which shall overlook the world as with the eye of God himself, and behold in God but the common Father of all mankind, in nations and races, however divided or styled, but a common family of brothers. So, that sentence there, let's see. Earth calls to God for a new reformation, which shall overlook the world as with the eye of God himself. So, I think there they're talking about the providence, or the glory, on our United States seal on the reverse, the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. That's referred to as called the glory. It's the eye of God. So I think that's what he's talking about there. As the German took his seat upon a ledge of rock near the central rock, a murmur of deep emphasis filled the cavern. Then, one by one, the members of that little band arose and spoke, thought of their souls freely and with no fear upon their faces. The Spaniard rose. In Spain exists the Inquisition. As if these words comprised all that man can know of degradation, all that priests can inflict or kings contrive in the form of murder, he said no more. Next, the Frenchman. Saint Bartholomew's corpses have not yet molded into dust, he said, and was silent. After he had ceased, an Irishman arose. He had no word to utter, or perchance his heart was too full for words. He laid upon the rock, in the rays of the light, some leaves of withered shamrock and a broken harp. The withered leaves and broken harp were stained with blood. Without a word, the Irishman glided into the shadows again. Then the voice of the Englishman was heard. Some time ago, there was a war in my native land. The people, that vulgar race, whose life is comprised in three words, we are born, we suffer, we die. The people, I say, came up bravely to that war and spoke with an ominous murmur to an anointed king, telling him in their rude way that he was but a man, that forgetting his manhood and his kingship, he had committed murders enough to have hurled 1,000 men to the scaffold. Therefore, said the people, king as you are, with the royal blood of 20 generations in your veins, with the anointing oil of all the priests in the land upon your brow, you must die. They put their king to death upon the scaffold, and said in the face of God and man, we will have no more to do with kings. They have had that world long enough for their murder ground. Long enough have they set men at one another's throats and turned the image of God into an engine of carnage. This was a brave thing, which the English people said, but the time was not yet come. They had not yet learned the great lesson of our order. First union, then freedom, and last brotherhood. They cannot yet recognize in God but a loving Father of all mankind, nor in nations and races, but a family of brothers. Therefore, after having put their king to death and buried the word king with his headless body, they became the slaves of faction. They quarreled about creeds and forms, leaving the great fact of all truth, brotherhood among men, a dumb and mangled thing beneath their bloody feet. At this time, a bold son of the people cast his eye about him, and saw the danger of his brethren. He saw the word king start into life again from the headless body of Charles I. He saw the people once more kneeling in their blood under the iron feet of power. He determined to save his race, but alas, pity us, good Lord, for we are weak. He could think of no better way of saving his people from the name of king than by usurping the power without the name. Therefore, the Lord delivered him not into the hands of his enemies, but to the remorse of his own soul, delivered his great heart to the terror of the assassin's steel, delivered his giant intellect, blinded and bound, like the Samson of old, to that terror which fears a shadow and trembles at a sound. At last he died in England, forgetful of the blood which had been shed to achieve her freedom, forgetful even of the greatness of that brewer who had made the name of protector nobler than the name of emperor. England, I say, forgetful of the brave men who had died by the tens of thousands to redeem her from the name of king. England rushed to the grave of Charles I and took the crown from his fleshless skull and put it on the head of Charles II and held him king. Yes, my brothers, Charles II is King of England now. While he reigns, there is a headless trunk amid the athol of the ditch. Just real quick, I'm going to look up that word. The entrails and internal organs of an animal used as food. Okay. There is a headless trunk amid the fall of the ditch. There is a bleeding head nailed up to scorn upon the gates of London. That headless trunk and that bleeding heart once embodied the soul of Oliver Cromwell. End quotes. The Englishman could say no more. Charles II on the throne, and Oliver Cromwell's body cast forth to feed the hunger of dogs. Oliver Cromwell's head nailed up to the gate of London. It was enough. I'm not sure who Oliver Cromwell is. I'm going to look. Okay. Oliver Cromwell was an English general and statesman who led the Parliament of England's armies against King Charles I during the English Civil War and ruled the British Isles as Lord Protector from 1653 until his death in 1658. Okay, he acted simultaneously as head of state and head of government of the new Republican Commonwealth. Interesting. And let's see. Oh, wow. So after he died, King Charles II went and dug up his body and they beheaded him and hung him in chains. Wow. So that's what they're kind of talking about here, I guess. Okay. Okay. The representatives of the nations uttered a groan for fallen England. Then, one by one, these men gathered from the quarters of the globe, assembled at the mandate of some invisible chief, or by the watchword of a universal brotherhood, arose and told in various ways, in every tongue, the same story. Kings everywhere, priests everywhere, and everywhere slaves. It was a horrible catalogue of enormities which fell from the lips of these brethren. Indeed, it seemed as if the world, its men and women, its little children, and its babes unborn, had been given up by some ferocious destiny into the hands of superstition and murder. The Turk, the Arab, and the Hindu, and the Swede all told the same story in various forms. In every land a king, and for the people nothing but chains and graves. There was a black man in the throng. From his voice and manner it appeared that he had received the education of the white race. The story that the black man told was of petty kings on the soil of Africa, selling the flesh and blood of Africa to eternal bondage in a new world. A bondage that had no parallel in the history of crime, for under the name of servitude it comprised murder, incest, blasphemy. As the word New World fell from the black man's lips, a shudder agitated the throng. Slavery in the New World, cried the German. Alas, alas, then God has indeed given the earth unto the power of Satan. Do not blaspheme, said the voice of the aged Swede. The New World is the last altar of brotherhood left on the surface of a desolated globe. We have looked to the east for light. It will come from the east, but in the west that light will reveal to us the perfect image of human brotherhood. At this word, the representatives from the New World arose. Everyone was silent. They all gazed upon his rugged features and backwoodsman attire with an absorbing interest. The New World is the last altar of human brotherhood, he said, echoing the words of the aged Swede. There was a band of friendless exiles, driven from the shores of England by the lash of persecution. They sought a home and an altar in the forest of the New World. They landed one day on a rock which they called Plymouth, and the red men of the woods bade the wanderers welcome. Brothers, this was not many years ago, and yet I stand among you, an exile and an outcast from the New World. An exile and an outcast from the New World, his words were echoed on every side. He has committed some horrible crime, and the aged Swede shrunk from the side of the colonist. Yes, I was guilty of crime, a horrible crime. I could not believe in my neighbor's creed. I could not think that murder was any less murder because it was done by grim priest in the name of God, and the victims were old men and defenseless women. Yes, yes, I have stood up upon the soil of the New World and seen men given up to the cord and scaffold because they would not believe in an orthodox Protestant creed. Even as I, a Spaniard, have seen them racked and burnt in the act of faith on an inquisition. But I have seen that image which we love in a wife, reverence in a sister, adored in a mother. I have seen the image of woman lashed naked through the streets, amid the jeers and prayers of cadaverous priest. he saw the blood start from the quivering flesh and shouted, "Scorn to the heretic, praise to our God. This on the soil of the new world. This in the land which God hath set apart as the most sacred altar of human brotherhood." Bathed in tears and blush, the American crouched into a seat. One groan quivered from the hearts of the listeners. We all look to the new world for light, and lo, we have it. But it is the light from the flame of persecution, the red blaze which bigotry has stolen from the fires of hell. From the verge of the circle which the brothers formed, as they clustered around the light, a tall form advanced. It was a man clad in a blanket, with a wampum belt about his waist, a man of aquiline nose and high cheekbones, eyes like sparks of flame, and skin that resembled the deep red of autumnal leaves. "I am an Indian," he said in a guttural tone, "but the language of your brotherhood has become my language. The altar at which you worship is also mine. I am an Indian. 20 winters ago, I dwelt among my people beside the river which flows from the forest to the sea. Our numbers were as the leaves in the forest, as the sands by the shore. From the wood to the river extended our wigwams, thick as the birds in the sky when the sun is low. The white man came. He was attired in black. There was a cross upon his breast. He taught my people a new religion. He built his temple in our midst. The great Spirit whom we had seen in the sky we now behold in a cross, and worshipped in the form of a silver cup. And yet his religion made the heart warm within us, for he spoke of a great being who had come from the sky so that he might suffer among men and die despised and scorned upon a tree, in order that all men might love one another. It was a beautiful religion, and we loved it. Our warriors knelt at the foot of the cross. Our maidens placed the cross upon their bosoms, and set it, bound with flowers, amid the folds of their raven hair. We loved the religion, and the men in the dark robe who taught us to love it grew white-haired among us. One morning in summer, as we gathered in the temple near the river shore, as the old man lifted the cup on high, while our nation knelt at his feet, a bullet pierced his brain. He fell at the foot of the cross. A red blaze streamed through every window. There was a sound like 100 thunderclaps in the air. There were 100 dead bodies on the floor of the temple. And his little asterisk here. So it's Father Raleigh. His mission was among the Norrid walks along the Kennebec River, a massacre of Christian converts by Christian soldiers, the shedding of blood without even a shred of cause. So I guess these are a group of Native Americans who were converted to Christian. And I think that's actually from history. Oh, let's see. The Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so it's a Indian tribe in the Northeast. Or Native American tribe, sorry. Let's see. Okay, so Father Raleigh was a Jesuit ministry or a missionary, and lexicographer, and worked among the Eastern Abenaki people. And those are the Nordiwalks, or whatever, however you say that word. They were part of a massacre. Hmm. Okay. The grass without the temple was burdened with the dead. The river near us grew red with blood on every wave. From the rocks on the opposite shore streamed one incessant sheet of flame. Evening came at last. The sun was setting. I was the only living man, and I stood alone amid the harvest of death. A cry of horror pervaded the cavern. Who was it that did this deed? Who were the murderers, the savages of other tribes, your foes among the red men? They were white men who did the deed. They believed in the same being whom the man in the dark robe taught us to love. Wherefore this murder? Asked the Swede. These white men who came upon us as we knelt in prayer, and shot us down, and stabbed us as we rose upon the river's wave, and pierced our skulls as we crept into the bushes, these white men believed in the same cross in which the old man believed. But a sad smile stole over the red features of the Indian. They only believed in the cross as it were written in the book, while the old man believed in it as it were carved in wood or sculptured in stone. Therefore they murdered us. There was a pause of stillness, unbroken by a sound. Brothers, cried the Indian, I come to you in the name of the red man. We melt away before the white race like snow before water. We melt away before the white race like snow before the flame. They kill us with the sword. They poison us with fierce water. They sweep us away with the plague. Help, or we are dead. The appeal of the red man touched every heart. An Italian, with every line of his animated countenance stamped by thought and endurance, next rose. Italy, he exclaimed, is palsied, or this is written back in the late 1800s, so it has a definite different writing style and words. Let's see. So palsied, where was I? Here we go. Okay, so basically it's just paralyzed. Italy, he exclaimed, is paralyzed by a nightmare which crouches upon her breast and slowly drinks the blood from her heart. The nightmare changes its form every instant. Now it is a priest, now it is a king. Now the priest and king combine in one. Realize the idea of an incarnate devil. Help, for Italy, ere the last drop of her blood is spent. Then by the side of the Italian appeared the dark figure of a Jesuit. Every eye shuddered to behold him there. All wondered why he had dared intrude upon this band of brothers. Not a man but shrunk away from him, afraid of the very folds of his dark robe. Help, for the Catholic Church, he exclaimed. Help, brothers of love, for that church which once overspread the earth and sheltered all men under the wings of the divine unity. She now lies bleeding in the hands of the princes who call themselves priests, of murderers who call themselves pastors. The smile that had agitated every face when he commenced died away in the look of sympathy as his last word fell on their ears. They extended their hands, they encircled him. There is hope for man when the Jesuit invokes the aid of brotherhood in behalf of the church. And all the while that solitary figure stood veiled, speechless and motionless near the rock, alone amid the throng. So, back to this sentence here. There is hope for man when the Jesuit invokes the aid of brotherhood in behalf of the church. So I think they're basically saying invoke the help of the mystery schools. Pretty interesting. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop there for today and then continue in a different video. It goes on to the Rosy Cross here. So thanks for listening, whoever is. And just one thing before I stop. The reason why I'm doing these videos is just for education purposes, really. Not to change anyone's minds or instill an idea. I just think this is interesting, and I'm doing this video for anyone who else thinks it's interesting, whoever that may be. Sorry if I mispronounce words or stutter on some lines. It's just this writing style and way of writing is just different from what I'm used to reading. So, sometimes I have to go back and like, wait, what did I just read? Sometimes I'll like put a word where I think there should be a word, or put words back, in different order. It's just, it's happening automatically. So it's like, anyways, thanks for watching.